Dive into the pulse of Bills football with Turf to Tape, where veteran sideline reporter Sal Capaccio and film room guru Erik Turner deliver a one-of-a-kind podcast experience, combining Sal's unparalleled access to players and coaches with Erik's razor-sharp film breakdowns. The show bridges the gap between casual fans and hardcore enthusiasts. This is Turf to Tape.
This is Turf to Tape, presented by Thin Man Brewery. I'm your host, Erik Turner, and as always, joined by Sal Capaccio from WGR. Sal, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I always look forward to this part of the week, Wednesday, where you can start to shift your attention to the next game, especially after a loss, right? You want to kind of cleanse it, get it out, and then kind of move on and, think about the next game. But even after a win. So, yeah, here we are. It's been a long couple of days, I think, to digest what happened down at Miami. I'll say that.
Sure has. I just got back from vacation in San Diego. I come back to the cold, the snow, and I'm just like, why did I come back to here? And then to kick off my time back, we're breaking down this game against the Dolphins. The Bills lose to the Dolphins 30-13. And I want you to once again set the stage down in Miami.
Yeah.
Give us the context of that game, the crowd, the heat, how much that played a factor in this game. I know it's not an excuse, but
no,
it was a factor, and it is some context in this game.
Yeah, for sure. The reason why it was a factor, much different than it was a couple of years ago. We all know the big heat game down there and guys getting IVs. That wasn't the case here. But what happened in this game was, you always hear about Sean McDermott talking about controlling the game. And I do believe philosophically I'm in line with that. Like when you control the game, I don't care what sport it is. There's ways to control the game where you're in control. The other team kind of has to play your game, your style. And this game got away from the Bills pretty early like that, where the Bills did not go for it in an early fourth down. A lot of people believe they should have, and that's fine. Yeah. It was 34-yard line. It's tough, right? But I get it. They punt it away, and you think, well, we're going to punt it away. We're going to stop you. Miami comes down and scores. Now you're already behind a little bit. Then things don't go your way, and you have to wind up. You give the ball back again. Anyway, the point is the Bills' defense was on the field for a long time.
Yeah.
And when that happens, and you start to get gassed, and you're in that kind of heat, that does wear on your body. And that's why I think later in the game, you saw more missed tackles. You saw a couple runs get out. I mean, mentally, physically fatiguing for sure. Give the Miami Dolphins a lot of credit, but the Bills just played a pretty poor football game here. They really did. And what's striking to me was after the game, hearing Josh Allen at the podium, Deion Dawkins at his locker, Spencer Brown, Daquan Jones. These are leaders on this team, offensive leaders, and in the case of Daquan, defensive leader. Basically saying something to the effect of they wanted it more. They played harder than us. Erik, that can't happen. It just can't happen. Right now, I'll be the first to tell you, and you know this, and everybody should know this, through a 17-game season, like you can't be up every game, unbelievably massively hyped and have your A game and your energy and all that, right? You can't. But against this team in that situation, who just fired their GM, who's selling off parts, who's 2-7, you go down there, your fan base is taking over their stadium like normal. Can't happen. So that's got to be corrected. That's got to be fixed. And hopefully it is against Tampa. And then final thing I'll say is great job by Bills Mafia once again to take over Hard Rock Stadium. Always great to see that. Unfortunately, not the result that Bills Mafia wanted, obviously.
Yeah, totally. And we have a lot of comments saying it's been a rough week for everyone. This team is in the deep. There's no doubt they hit a rut there. They hit a speed bump down in Miami, and they did come out flat. And I do think it's tied to that Chiefs game and how much energy and strategy went into that game, because this is a team in the Dolphins that the Bills have handed many losses over the last few years. And I think that is part of the mindset of why the Bills Mafia after this game are struggling right now, because for the longest time, the Bills, and specifically Josh Allen, has played really, really well against the Dolphins, almost owning them and not having a rivalry quite, to that standard over the last few years, because Josh has always played well against the Dolphins over the last few years, but they were flat. They lacked the physicality. They lacked the emotion needed. And like you said, I think the Dolphins just took it to the Bills, which was kind of surprising given the history of the last few years. And so on offense, when we talk Josh Allen, I want to get your status. This is like a week to week thing with this offense. And it is, what's the state of Josh Allen, the passing game, the offense, when you frame it in this Dolphins game, but also the big picture stuff that we've been talking about for weeks?
Yeah, it's stagnant right now. It's got to be better. It feels like they don't have the capability. They haven't shown the capability to really push the ball down the field with a quarterback who absolutely you should be able to push the ball down the field with.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gone back. This is chicken and egg. I know you've had this conversation with people. I've had this conversation with people. Is it the coach, the offensive coordinator, the play calling, the scheme that he incorporates? By the way, there's a difference between scheme and play calling. I want to make sure people know that, right? Like scheme is like how you present different formations, different personnel, what your rules are, and a lot of different the way you do things. That's your scheme. Game plan is how you're going to attack a team on a week-to-week basis. Play calling is a play-to-play basis. Okay, this is on this down, what we want to get to in our play sheet. But all of it's part of an overall scheme, and all of it's part of an overall game plan. So those are two different things, but all of them right now just are not being used efficiently enough, effectively enough, or good enough to get the ball down the field. So is it that? Is it the players they have not able to separate, get the ball down the field, trusting, being able to find holes in a zone where I know you and I talked earlier this week, teams are really zoning up the Bills a lot. And I asked Joe Brady about that, and he said, absolutely. We're seeing a lot more zone than we have in years past. And maybe that's to keep eyes on Josh Allen. Make sure he doesn't run forward and gain yards. And now you have to find guys who can figure out ways to sit down in zones and things like that. And then when they go, man, do you have those players to be able to beat it? And is it Josh Allen? Is it him and him being off and not trusting things? And as he says, at times having happy feet. I just think there's so much that goes into the mix of the sauce here that you can't blame it on one thing necessarily.
I agree. It's never just one thing, whether it's good or bad. But it does seem as a whole, the offense, as you said, is stagnant, lacks rhythm. I think there's a very good structure. I think the playbook is good. It's cohesive when you're looking at the formations and how they match the run and the pass and how they give different looks. And yes, do they run the same plays a bunch? Yes, until the defense shuts them down. Well, the Dolphins shut down a lot of those core concepts, and there weren't the curveballs that you would expect from a coordinator to adjust and to counteract what the game plan of Miami's was. Like you said, 83% zone coverage in this game by the Dolphins. And that means that Josh has to throw in rhythm, within structure. He's got to go through the process consistently. And in this game, he just didn't. There were throws that were, 4-yard throws that, he could make. He's made several times in this very same concepts. But in this game, he wasn't taking them. He was moving on, and then he hit a dead end and be like, okay, now what do? I have to scramble around and try to improvise. He has to stay within the guardrails and structure of the offense that Joe Brady has designed so that they can get those plays down the field, those calculated shots after throwing it underneath. I mean, 83% zone, but 85% of those zone coverages were cover 3. So the middle of the field was clogged. They did want Josh to throw it deep, but he has to continuously take the stuff underneath so that he can get the vertical stuff down the field and, more importantly, make those throws. There were throws that he did not make down the field to Keon Coleman. And the one late in the game where Keon Coleman is going down the right sideline, he's behind the corner in zone coverage, and Josh just underthrew just a little bit, and the DB was able to climb the ladder and make a play on it. So there's a little bit of everything. Some of it's structure of the offense. Some of it is the lack of personnel. Some of it is players not executing. And we saw a lot of those things happen in this game against Miami.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think part of it too is, the Bills have built an offense that relies a lot on yards after catch. And they've done a great job of that, right? They're very, very good at that. Teams are taking it away by going zone and saying, we're going to keep eyes in front of you. And when you catch the ball, we're going to tackle you. If you're in a man-to-man defense and a guy beats you man-to-man, he's going to get an extra several yards because he's probably a step behind you. And I think teams are combating the Bills' strengths right now. And the Bills' strengths are running the football and yards after catch when you catch the football. And teams like the Dolphins on Sunday, the Dolphins came into this game and said, you are not going to run the ball with James Cook. We are going to make sure. They did the same thing against Atlanta, Bijan Robinson. All week, I'm like, boy, this Dolphins defense, the numbers are terrible. How did they stop Bijan Robinson? The same way they stopped James Cook. They said, we are going to focus everything we have on stopping your running game, put you in some longer yardage situations, and then, believe it or not, force a team with Josh Allen at quarterback to beat us through the air.
It's crazy.
That's crazy to think about, right?
That's nuts. Yeah.
And yet the Bills, they couldn't do it. And they were in some long yardage situation. It does make it tough. I don't care who you're playing against. Converting 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 9s all day is just in the NFL. It's not going to happen, right? I mean, it's just like,
Right.
yeah, you can get a couple of those here and there. Yes, you can get a 4th and 17 like the Chiefs did a few weeks ago, but it's just when you're in those constant situations. So we look at 3rd down. Like I look at 3rd down. Coaches look at 3rd down in the numbers. The Bills lost this game on 1st and 2nd down is where they lost this game.
100%. 100%. And that's a great segue into our Tapped In segment presented by Thin Man Brewery. We're going to do it a little different this week. Rather than pick a play or player, I want to analyze how, like you said, how defenses, and specifically this Dolphins defense, attacked the Bills offense, how they strategized versus the Bills offense. And you asked a great question to Spencer Brown in the locker room right after the game about the start of this game and how they were able to slow down the rushing offense. So listen in.
As the number 1 rushing team in the league, they slowed you down a little bit more than you guys are used to. Anything that they did differently or unexpected?
They loaded the box well. They came out in base right off the first drive. I personally was not expecting that. Sideline for the 5 technique, so I was kind of looking around. They had the big nickel walk all the way to the slot, so it was just a weird look there for the first quarter or so. And yeah, they did a good job on defense. I think we had 90 yards total the first half, so that's not like us at all. And the big old kick to the you know what. So yeah.
And it was surprising to see, Sal. So what he said was essentially the Dolphins came out in base defense. They had 3 linebackers on the very first play of the game, matching the Bills' 11 personnel. But honestly, they obviously weren't matching. They were saying, you know what? We understand you're going to come out early, especially on first downs, because the Bills have a tendency to run heavy on first down. Highest run rate on first down in the entire league. They said, we're going to come out heavy. We're going to have 3 linebackers on the field, whether you have 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, or 11 personnel, whether you're under center in a condensed formation or you're out wide. Because on the first play of the game, it actually was a 3-by-1 set, 3 receivers to one side, 1 to the other. They were in a spread formation, and the Dolphins didn't care. They said, we're going to match you with our base defense. We're going to even have that linebacker out of the box, and we're just going to worry about when you want to run the ball because we know you want to run the ball on first down.
That's right. So 5 tech. So he's shaded outside the tackle.
Yes.
So everybody understands Spencer Brown, what he's talking about there. And then you walk the big nickel up. Now you're really putting a lot of stress on the offense to figure out where that hole is. And one thing that really stood out to me in this game is when they did that, then as soon as the ball was snapped, you had a safety or somebody was charging downhill. Like they were coming right at the cutback lanes were not there for James Cook in this game, right, Erik? I mean, the cutback lanes were just taken away. It seemed like all day long, right? And you're right. I think the Dolphins just made a conscious effort and said, it doesn't matter what personnel you're putting on the field. We know you want to run the ball because you do it from all personnel. You do it with your receivers. What do the Bills talk about all the time? Receivers who have to block, and that's great. And they do have receivers who block, and I think that's fantastic that they can help out in the run game. But the Dolphins said, you can go with 3 tight ends, 2 tight ends. You can go with 11 personnel. We know James Cook is your ticket here to get you yards on 1st and 2nd down to make it more manageable on 3rd down. We're going to take that away. So I love the answer by Spencer Brown. It's a bit concerning because they're like, wait a minute, like we didn't expect that, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong. I always want to say, like, the other team has coordinators who get paid a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Like they had a great plan. Good job by Anthony Weaver and the Dolphins. But what you have to do is adjust to that then, right? You have to have answers for that. I didn't think the Bills had the right answers for that.
Right. And so here, again, this is the first play of the game. And to their credit, they did pass. So they broke a tendency in the first play of the game. So right here, over the number 2 receiver to the top of the screen is actually their linebacker, 3rd linebacker, Willie Gay. And then you have the 2 linebackers in the box. And what the Dolphins did for most of the game is have Minkah Fitzpatrick down on either Shakir or Kincaid. And there were times when I talked about earlier, Josh bypassing throws, short throws underneath, whether it's in or outbreakers. Minkah was usually there. So he was aware of where Minkah was for most of this game. But overall, like you said, when it comes to the tendencies of the Bills on first down and how run heavy they are, they run on first down 62.7% of the time. And so that is a tendency. It's the number 1 run rate in the league on first down. And of course, there are many factors to that. And one of them being that, like people are saying in the chat room, that the defenses aren't afraid of the Bills passing game. And so they have to not only pass on first down, like you saw there, but they have to break that tendency. But they got to do some things, not just with personnel, but hey, if you're going to be in shotgun on first down and show like it's a pass, because again, when they are in shotgun, there is a tendency for them to pass. Well, you got to start running out of shotgun as well. So there are ways to combat how defenses really, want to attack them like that. If they're going to have 3 linebackers on the field and one of them gets kicked out of the box because of the formation, why aren't you running the ball out of shotgun?
Mm-hmm.
You have one less linebacker. It will kind of counteract in many ways what the defense is doing. And just, you got to pass more. You got to ride Josh Allen. He was an MVP last year for a reason. You got to ride him a little more on those early downs and just pass more so that you can set up other things, not using the run consistently to set up the pass, but using the pass to set up the run.
Yeah. And when you see those things, when the Bills see those things, they're going to have to recognize them and, get to something else, the play sheet, the checks, things like that. And Joe Brady talked about that, communications, checks, like asking him on Monday about, what went wrong or what he can do different. That's what, he talked about. He talked about checks and communications and all those things that you're talking about right now, right? It is a football game and it's strategy against strategy, and it's not just, you can't just wave a magic wand and say, oh, the Bills can do this really well, so they're going to go out there and do it. The other team is trying to counter you to do some different things. I love the point about you want to be under center and run play action and throw the ball. The Bills are very good at that, but also be in shotgun and run the ball. You can never give one thing or the other all the time. So people know exactly what's happening here. We get people all the time who say the Bills offense is so predictable. Yeah, it can be predictable. Every offense can, because you have tendencies, right? But the Bills actually, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, they are the most run to pass ratio, run heavy team in the league when it comes to run pass ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So by the numbers, they're the least predictable team in the league, to be quite honest with you, right? Because you never know what's happening. But the point is, the point is here, though, that you have the league MVP in Josh Allen, and your passing game is struggling way to a point where it should never, with that guy under center.
Right. And one thing I posted yesterday is that I'll never understand why the Bills don't run more play action. If you have such a good run game and defenses are so zoned in on stopping James Cook, then why aren't you running more play action? And part of that, as I talk in this tweet here, part of that is, for years, Dable and Dorsey ran a lot of RPOs, a lot of run play, those type of plays where it could be a run or a pass. And that really did hinder their actual base running game more, because the offensive linemen are like, okay, we want to be physical. We want to move the line of scrimmage, but we also don't want to be past the, 2 yards or so where you get called for a penalty if Josh pulls it and throws it. That happened a bunch. And so even with that aside, Josh on play action since 2020 has 76 touchdowns off of play action, only 5 last year and only 4 so far this year, as you can see on this graphic. I don't understand why they don't run more play action, whether it's from gun, whether it's from under center, because I do think that with such a run game, and you don't have to have a good run game. Let's always put that disclaimer out there. You don't have to have a very good run game to be effective on play action.
Correct.
But we know Josh is very good off of play action with his fakes, with his sleight of hand. And I just don't understand why Brady doesn't run it more often for his quarterback.
I agree with you. It's a great point. You don't need a great run game to be good in play action, but play action is a lot better when you have a really good run game, right? And the Bills do, and they have a really good run game. And I don't blame the Bills for leaning into their run game and James Cook. They've built this offensive line that way, and that's great. But that should be the best of both worlds now, right? The best of both worlds should be, hey, we can do that. And guess what? We now have Josh Allen as MVP and quarterback, and he's elite. And if you want to stop that run game, we got this guy who's just going to throw the ball on you. So then you get to, well, what then has happening outside of him as well when you do go to throw the ball. And Josh wound up with this game with over 300 yards passing, which is crazy. But a lot of it was because the Bills late in the game had to throw the ball more. And, the numbers were kind of there. But, the Bills, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier to start the show. The Bills are built to control a football game, and that's how they win. When they control. You go back to the Kansas City game, Erik, there was never a point in that game where I did not feel the Bills weren't in control. They were in control of the game. They scored early, which is a big deal. They scored early. They were in control of the game. It didn't mean they were up, because I think Kansas City came down and tied it, but I never felt like the game ever got away from the Bills in any sense. Like, they were dictating terms to Kansas City throughout the whole game. In this game, they did not do that because of the early failures of conversion, 3rd and 2, don't pick it up. You punt the ball away. Miami comes down, they score. Now Miami's kind of dictating terms, and I don't think the Bills are built to be able to play like that, which is unfortunate because you'd think that they should be able to with Josh Allen, but they're just not built to play a game where they're not in control like they should
Right.
be.
You're right, and McDermott said it in his presser, right? He said they were chasing. They were chasing. They got down
That's
a couple
exactly right.
possessions, and they just couldn't get the offense on track. And then they're still trying to lean on the identity of their offense, and that has been James Cook. Whether you want to debate that or not, but it has been James Cook. And so, as you said, the way the Dolphins were game planning, the way they were more complementary with their offense and defense, and how those early down runs were getting stopped and leaving the Bills in second and third and long plays, and then them not able to convert it really hurt their game script. Like you said, they weren't able to get on track into their game script and how they want to control games, like you said they did in prior games. And I totally agree with you. It's going to be interesting to see how they offset some of these tendencies going forward. So there's some strong tendencies, as we showed you. And so it's up to Tom Brady. It's up to Joe Brady and this offense to get back on track and lean into, like you said, their quarterback. He's one of the best players on this planet. They need to start leaning on him. And Josh needs to elevate his game because he is part of the issue. He is a person that is struggling right now to recognize pressures and blitzes and different defensive fronts. And again, he's not taking some of those easy button plays underneath like he had done last year, which again negates a lot of those negative plays and minimizes those negative plays and keeps that offense on track.
That's right. And there are things teams I think are doing to the Bills that, as we said about Miami, maybe it's coming out in different personnel, but I think there's blitzes, there's different kinds of looks and fronts and blitzes. Go back to the Atlanta game, that things are doing to the Bills that maybe they're trying. Look, the Bills are going to get everybody's best shot. We know that. Yes. And teams have been game planning against the Bills since the offseason. When they know that they have them in week 10 or week 11, Tampa's going to do that. Todd Bowles is going to come into Buffalo next week and say, we're going to do some things that they haven't seen yet because that's how you try to beat an elite quarterback in the Buffalo Bills. And they're going to have to get used to that and have to find answers during the game. But execution matters. And, I go back to simple things like, again, first drive, 3rd and 2, you get 1 yard, pick up 2 yards. You should pick up 2 yards.
And Sal, that one really irked me because they went tempo, which I think they should do in this next game. And we'll talk about that later, but they went tempo. Josh got them to the line of scrimmage and he actually called that run. That was his choice in play. It was that little zone read, inside zone, hand off the Cook, and they only get 1 yard. And then of course, then McDermott punts it there. Like it's just, they go 4th and 1 and they don't get it right. That was that sequence.
No, 4th and no, they punted. They punted on
that one. Okay. Yeah. It just, Josh, what are you doing? Like, I understand it worked against the Chiefs, but don't you think they saw that? You know what I mean? Like, don't call that play at the line of scrimmage. Something else needs to be called. He admitted that he should have called or got them into something different there. And it's just been disjointed. And it's something like I said, I wanted to talk about in this segment presented by Thin Man Brewery. Mafia Light hits different with 3.5%. It is the beer of this year, honestly, in Western New York. It's 3.5 ABV and only 80 calories per 12-ounce can. Drinks like water with notes of beer. It's the first craft Pilsner of its kind brewed and packaged here in Western New York. A true game changer for local beer lovers. Check it out at your local markets and whatnot. Appreciate them sponsoring this year, this segment this year. But I want to stay on the offensive side of the ball, so I want to talk about the receivers. I want to talk about just still with the passing game, because I thought you asked a great question. Something we talked about to Joe Brady in his presser about, wide receivers and separating versus zone versus man. And he actually opened up a good amount and kind of gave us a good peek behind the curtain when it came to the offense and, what it takes to separate, as an offense, as a receiver in the offense. And I want to play that here from that presser.
Like, is it just a receiver can get open, or is that a skill set when teams want to play you a certain way and understanding the feel for that?
Yeah, we haven't gotten a lot of man this year. We generally speaking, we don't. And some of that might be because of Josh, and every game we go into, we make sure that we have man checks and we have alerts and, sometimes we'll start with man beaters, sometimes we'll finish with man beaters, so to try to keep teams off beat with that. But there's a type of routes against man. Some give them freedom to be able to do different type of release plans. Some it has to be an outside release. There's a lot of different release patterns and plays necessarily for wide receivers. I think, yes, is there a skill set at the top of the route, the nuances of working it, or is there a different type of release patterns, how certain corners play? Every corner is going to play differently, and how am I going to run a slant versus this guy as opposed to this guy and this guy? And so there's a lot of different elements that go with it, and there's a difference in play calls, right? It's not just on the player, it's also on the play. Or if we're running a play that is a zone answer and you get man coverage, is it the receiver's fault? And there's some nuances. And if we're running a man beater in a zone concept, it's like, hey, it's a runaway, but, it's zone. So is he getting open? Is it access? So I think it coincides. It's just as much on me as it is, us finding ways of getting to the right checks and the alerts. But I think there's a difference.
And I love that question. And it's something we talked about, prior to that presser. And the reason I think this is a great topic to talk about is because I just see so many people using, average time to throw by Josh in this game being like 3.5, highest of his career, yada, yada, yada. And, the Dolphins getting 17 pressures on Josh and only 4 of them were under 2.5 seconds. And then at the same time, use those stats to say, well, the wide receivers aren't separating. And so I use advanced analytics every day. We bring it to the show here every week. That is a misuse of the stats. Average time to throw isn't about guys not separating, because in this game, as you guys saw when you watched the game back, there were guys open. It's not always about, hey, guys aren't separating. And especially when you're talking about the defense and the Dolphins playing zone coverage 83% of the time. It's just a misuse of stats to support a narrative, which there is truth in that narrative of the receivers not separating, but it really grinds my gears when I see those type of stats being used to support that.
I mean, partly time to throw too, baked in there is him running around for 20 seconds on a play.
Yeah,
right?
that does.
You get a little bit of that. But I saw a few screenshots of, I think there was one on Radio Way on Sunday night or Monday that you had commented on, where you have a couple different options. Here's Coleman over the middle, here's Samuel on the outside. And it feels like, okay, Josh could take that. It's a 2-yard gain and guys are there. So he probably doesn't want to, right? So now he gets to his next read. And by the time he looks there, now that starts to close. And that's a 3-yard gain. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. And he could take those easy button throws. Well, those easy button throws might still wind up only being a 2-yard gain. And then you start to wonder, like, okay, now what's happening is teams are making him a little impatient, right? They're making him a little impatient. He wants to get.
They're testing him. They're testing his patience.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly right. They're exactly right. And it. I know that there's separation right there in some respects where you're not taking that because that's just not what you want. Let's go to the 4th and 1. They ran same play against the Chiefs to end the game, right? But this time it's Ty Johnson. It's a little rollout, ties in the flat. Great job by the Dolphins to cover it up. The Dolphins, the Bills packed it in like they were gonna run a tush push. Right. Dolphins pack it in. Bill's like, okay, they have the right play call, roll out with Dolphins ready. Bam, they spread right out. They covered up. I think Jackson Hawes was the 3rd read, not even the 2nd, because actually in the 2nd level there, I think you had another tight end, might have been Knox, and then down the field is Jackson Hawes. But I get a lot of people going, oh my God, how could you design a play where Jackson Hawes down the field? That wasn't the design of the play. The design of the play was to throw it to Ty Johnson in the flat, but that wasn't there. Josh couldn't run it, so Josh got to like his 3rd read. And again, that's testing the patience. And what are you going to do here? Because we're taking away your 1st and 2nd options.
Yeah, and when it comes to those underneath throws, the play you're talking about, that double China 7, you have the 2 under routes, and they have usually that 3rd guy inside. He's usually run a corner. He could be running up the seam. He could run a bender to the middle, depending on the way the defense unfolds. But there's a reason why the Bills are a top 5 team in yards after catch, because this offense is designed that way. And if their quarterback's not taking those 4-yard in routes to Coleman, which everyone wanted him in the slot, well, he was in the slot on that play. He was running a route that is open against his coverage. And yeah, maybe, they throw it 4 yards, that 4-yard route, and he only gets 4 yards. But that's 4 yards when you're talking those 3rd downs. That's a big difference. And so that's part of staying on track. And so, yes, defenses are testing them. And those plays, these receivers, it's not man-to-man coverage. It's just zone. And that is where we need to start talking about, hey, yes, separation isn't quite there a lot, but in this game, when it comes to separation, there's a difference when a wide receiver is running a route versus man versus zone. And as Joe Brady said in that presser, when it comes to zone, there's some leeway and freedom in how they run those routes, but it's really on the receiver to pace the route, to be in the window, to be in the eye line of Josh when that window is opening, that zone window is opening. And so scheme does play a lot of that. And there's no doubt that, hey, they have to have the proper zone beater drawn up to play against this coverage. But again, with the tendency in this game of the Dolphins to play a lot of zone, there were those windows, but if Josh isn't hitting them, he's not setting the offense up for success in the later downs. And so again, we talked about, changing those tendencies and maybe, challenging things early in downs with the passing game. But it's just fascinating to me, this conversation of no separation, because again, there is truth to it. But I think the context when you talk about how often, teams are playing zone coverage against the Bills, and how Josh isn't taking some of these easy button plays in the losses, especially because you saw him do it against the Chiefs. You saw him throw that screen as many times as he could when he thought pressure was coming, and it kept the offense on track. And of course, in the end, led to a win.
Yeah, that's right. And got a comment here I want to address real quick from Coleman. We put it up here. Coleman is lazy on his routes. Really interesting. Sean actually was asked by Matt Perino during the press conference on Monday about Keon Coleman's effort. I thought his answer was really interesting, Erik, because he said he knows when it needs to be better, we address it. And I mean, there's an admission there that it's not always where it needs to be. But right. Sean said, like anybody, right? It's not like any performer. It's going to be where it needs to be sometimes. It's not going to be where it needs to be sometimes. And I think there's a lot that comes out of this game from, is he giving maximum effort every play? Is he running doing everything, pacing his routes exactly the way he should be? Or is he just kind of taking the play off because he doesn't think it's coming his way? And I do think there's a larger conversation there about Keon Coleman, that he's a young player and he's a young person, right? And maturity and all those kinds of things we talk about. He's been disciplined twice in his young career so far. Mm-hmm. And I do think that he can help this passing game. He has to internally fix those things that we're talking about, whatever that is, at those times they need to be fixed. And yes, I think that goes right to the heart of also Josh Allen trusting him and being on the same page, and all that gets baked into it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation when you're talking about Coleman, because if all of that's true, if the inconsistencies are there and some of that, his routes are lazy and lackadaisical, why is he playing so much?
70%. I looked it up this morning. He has been on the field this year as a whole, 71% of the snaps. The next closest receiver is Khalil Shakir at 60%, 71 to 60. And, the head coach who says, hey, it gets addressed when it's not there, he could control that. He could say, you're not playing, don't put him on the field, right? I mean, he could tell the wide receivers coach and Joe Brady, he could tell him all that. They put him on the field because I think that they believe that he helps out in areas they need help in the run game. He could be a mismatch, whatever. But I'm wondering what's going to happen going forward here when Joshua Palmer's healthy, hopefully this week, when Gabe Davis is ready to play. Like, is that a straight, we're going to start taking Keon Coleman off the field? I don't know. I do think it's a really interesting conversation. And I agree with you. Like, it's 71%, the most on the team. Right. And yet we're talking about these issues.
And part of it is, yes, they don't have many true X's. And that's where I think, like you said, whether it's Davis, whether it's Palmer, I think that they need to loosen up some of the roles of, in this offense. Maybe Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel aren't your traditional X's, but based on the routes that you run, you want your X to be able to run the full route tree, be able to separate zone versus man. Well, Coleman's not doing that. You have some speed I think you need to inject into the X roles, because, for example, that pass that Josh threw an interception in the red zone, trying to throw it to the Shavers in the back of the end zone that was intercepted. On the backside of that play is the man beater route, and that was run by Coleman. It actually was a really good route. He kind of got held on that play. Josh was looking to the zone side of this beater concept when he admitted that the Dolphins were in zero. So he's admitting that his eyes technically weren't even in the right spot. They should have been to the single isolated receiver side. Okay, think about it from that perspective. If teams are challenging you in certain situations in the red zone, to win one-on-ones versus man, why aren't you putting speed guys in the role of the man beater concept? They need to do that more. I think they need to put Samuel more out there. It's not going to be perfect because those guys aren't good against press. So you get a good corner, probably going to man them up pretty good. But in those situations when the blitz is coming and Josh needs an outlet and he needs someone to win one-on-one, why aren't they putting speed in that element, in that role of the X to help Josh late in the play when those pressures come and that man coverage hits the defense?
Yeah, he said after the game that it went officially as a target to Dawson Knox. It was not a target to Dawson Knox, just so everybody knows. He said he rushed the throw and he couldn't step into the throw. I think he said he couldn't step into it because the pressure, whatever, and he was trying to hit Shavers in the back of the end zone because he couldn't step into it. He short arms it, and there's the interception that gets thrown to Melifonwu, right? Who had the interception in the end zone. Had to get my Syracuse guy, Melifonwu,
of course.
But no, bad, not what you want to see from that, from the Bills. There was another play earlier. This had to be third quarter. I think. I mean, Shakir was open on like a post, and Josh just didn't thread the needle there down the middle, and it would have been a touchdown, right? You know what I'm talking about? Like,
it was a little bend around versus quarters.
Yes, those little margins. Like, if he hits them there, that's a touchdown right there. And I don't even remember. Maybe they scored in that. I don't even know if they scored in that drive. I don't think they did. But little things like that are coming into play, that the margin for error is just getting so small. And again, when you want to play a game that's controlling it with the run game, and we're going to control, and we're not going to be a chase team, your margin for error becomes smaller. When you miss a play like that, that really compounds the problem.
And you talked about, where do we go from here with, Palmer and maybe Davis? I'm hearing that Davis is going to be elevated for this game against Tampa Bay. And, if you look in years past, and I don't know what role he's going to play, but you do know that he's reliable. He has rapport with Josh. Josh trusts him. He did in the past. And he's actually had some pretty good games against the Bucs in years past. So it'll be interesting to see, again, where we go from here. They brought in Mecole Hardman to the practice squad. Talk about that real quick, because yes, it's a vertical stretch. Yes, it's the speed. Yes, honestly, he could do a lot of things that Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel do, but he adds a different element, possibly a more explosive element in the return game, right?
9.2 yards a return. In his career is currently the 11th best of any active player in the NFL. He has 82 or 89 returns. I can't remember exactly, but like way far more than anybody on the Bills currently has in their career, like a number of actual punt returns. Brandon Codrington, I've always been a Brandon Codrington supporter. I think Brandon Codrington was very good last year. He just has not really been that explosive.
Yeah.
So, and it's fine, but the problem is if you're not really making a difference and you're not contributing as a position player, it's hard to justify having him active. People say, why is Codrington not active? Well, it's not that he's bad as a punt returner or a kick returner. He's fine at it. But if you're not going to be exceptional at it, then you have to, it's hard to justify keeping him when you have all these injuries, depleting your roster, and you need guys to step into other roles. Mecole Hardman could do that. Mecole Hardman could be a punt returner that allows you to have somebody that can really help in the return game, but also you put him on the field as a wide receiver, and then you don't have to use Khalil Shakir there, and he can concentrate more on what he wants to do. And one of the issues the Bills are having right now, Erik, they are the second lowest team in the NFL in drive starts, meaning where their drive starts. There's the average starting drive. Believe it or not, the Eagles are the worst team, and the Bills are the second worst team in the NFL. Wow. If they can improve their drive starts, I know people think it's crazy, even by like 3-4 yards makes a big difference.
Yeah,
because that can be a difference.
It affects drive success,
kicking field goals. Yes. That's right, 100%. Right, and right now the Bills' drive starts. I had to go back and look. I think 26-yard line, 28-yard line. I think it is. But either way, if you can get that up to even like 31, like now you're talking about a much different scenario at the end of a drive. And I think that's where Mecole Hardman can help out too.
Hey, they need those hidden yards. They need every little thing to help their offense. And that is one of those transactions that a lot of fans are just going to roll their eyes and think it's just strictly based on the offense. But actually I do agree. I think it has a lot to do with him as a returner and trying to jumpstart drives for that struggling offense, that inconsistent offense at times. So with all that offensive talk, let's go on to the defensive side real quick. Want to get your thoughts on top down what the Bills were able to do on defense, what they weren't able to do, and your thoughts about, how that unfolded on that side of the ball.
Well, tackling was an issue again, but I actually do believe like it's not an excuse at all, but I do think they were gassed, and it becomes harder to tackle as the game goes on. When you're in the heat, you're on the field so much, and because the offense couldn't convert, the defense was on the field a lot, and yeah, they allowed some conversions as well. I thought as compared to games past where the Bills played the Dolphins, the thing they did not do really well in this game was take away Tua's first read. They generally had taken away Tua's first read in a lot of other games, and they did not do that very well in this game. And then the Dolphins got a couple of nice easy button throws and catches, and then they get put in position where they can kind of third and short. They can do different things. And here's a wheel route to Waddle, and Max Harrison gets beat, right? And things start to just compound from there. I actually like where the secondary is right now. And I know he got beat on that play. Cole Bishop comes up with an interception. Max comes up with an interception. I think the secondary play is actually getting to a point where I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. Right now, they're not getting as much from their linebackers as you need, right? They're not getting as much from their linebacking play. They're missing Shaq Thompson. That's not an option right now. They're getting washed in the run game. They're getting bodies on them. Terrel Bernard, we know he's a smaller linebacker. You got to keep him clean. He's not being kept clean. And this goes back to a lot of the injuries on the defensive line. They go into this game. Landon Jackson gets hurt early. I mean, Daquan Jones had to play defensive end.
Played the end, yeah. Yeah, injuries obviously are affecting the front. Yeah, there's no doubt. And missed tackles are still, I think it's still an issue. And Babbage said it in the presser, like some weeks it's amazing. Some other weeks, like the Dolphins game, I think they missed 13 tackles in this game, which isn't awful, relatively speaking. But when you're missing multiple tackles on Achane, a guy that can take it to the house and who did take it to the house, on top of, hey, they're getting tired because they're on the field so much, those things are going to creep up more when that defense is, kind of gassed. And Terrel Bernard, yes, he's had a rough season. He has been dealing with injury. Like going back and watching his film from this game and then comparing it to his film from last year. And I went specific. I looked at exact run concepts that the Dolphins ran against them last year and like outside zone concepts, and then looked at it this year. His reactive athleticism, again, he's not the super great athlete, but his processing, his, from the shoulders up, his thinking on his feet is really what puts him in position to make plays and play faster than his, time speed. And you can just see it that he's injured. First it was a hamstring he was recovering from. He had the ankle injury. He's still hurt. That right ankle is still hurting him. I wouldn't say he's injured, but I think he's dealing with being hurt and it's affecting his play, because you can see his change of direction is just non-existent, whether you're talking the run or the pass.
Yeah, and I would say this too, like I'm glad you bring it up, because people say, well, injury report and things like that. He's been on and off the injury report, but you're right. When you can't get fully healthy because you're game planning and you're going through practice every week, you're trying, but if you can't fully get there, that's tough. And sometimes you need that extra week. You need a bye week. You didn't play against Carolina. He comes back, and you're right. It feels like he's just not quite where he had been and where he is and where he needs to be, going forward. So yeah, for sure. And Joey Bosa's playing with that wrist and club. I'll tell you, he's the only guy on defense I gave an arrow up to, because I thought he played a good game, and he had a couple tackles for loss. And he's playing with that club or cast or whatever on his wrist. And even he's playing, injured. Here's Joey Bosa doing everything he can, of all people that we talk about keeping him healthy. And he's had this injury history. This guy's dealing with it. And, he's out there, and he's, I thought he played a pretty decent game against the Miami Dolphins. So, it's funny. The Bills worked out Morgan Fox yesterday, and Morgan Fox he would come in. This is a guy that actually a few years ago had 6.5 sacks, 5.5 sacks.
Yeah, he's good.
He would be, I'm not saying he's Michael Hoyt, but he would play that role. That's what he would probably be. He'd probably be a guy that would play that role of losing Michael Hoyt, which allows you now, because of Landon Jackson's injury, to get Javon Solomon back to his natural defensive end spot and not have to kick him inside and outside and do all those different things you're doing with him right now. And right now they're just trying to piece all that together.
Yeah, he's a guy that when he hit free agency, I think it was a couple of years ago, I definitely had him as a target, because he's got the motor, he's got the tenacity that they want from that position. He can play in multiple defensive fronts, some 4-3 looks as a D tackle, some as a defensive end, and some 3-4 alignments. Definitely a versatile player. Not really good in a 2-point type stance, but he does have some of that Michael Hoyt versatility to him. And one guy that has shown that versatility in the Bills defense this year over the last few games has been Cam Lewis.
Yes.
This conversation's getting stronger by the day for him to be a starter over Taron Johnson. I want to get your thoughts on it because I know you've been a huge supporter of Cam. There are times where the Bills fan base have wanted him cut, and God, you just keep saying you guys just don't understand how valuable this guy is. But he's shown it as a starter the last few games.
I've been saying it for years, and that's right. I remember going back to this year. Okay, I will tell you. Remember the draft, the minute they draft Jordan Hancock. How many Bills fans? Oh, Cam Lewis replacement. He's gone. Jordan Hancock's here. It's like, no, that's not like Jordan Hancock is going to be a nice player. Figure out what he can do. And now we're seeing, and he's starting to get incorporated a little bit. Maybe he should be a little bit more, but it had never had anything to do with Cam Lewis drafting Jordan Hancock because Cam Lewis is his own entity. Cam Lewis is a very valuable player. He is what Brandon Beane has referred to as the best backup nickel in the league. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know because I'm not ranking all the backup nickels. What I can tell you is, though, he's now fighting to show that he should be on the field more, even when Taron Johnson's healthy, right? And that's the conversation that is kind of uncomfortable, but it's the truth right now because Taron Johnson is not having a Taron Johnson type of year, and he's been dealing with injuries. And Cam Lewis is so valuable because he can play that and he can play safety. All things being equal, I want Taron Johnson on the field as much as possible. Okay, this is not me as an anti-Taron Johnson point at all. But when Taron Johnson isn't playing and Cam Lewis is out there, I'm perfectly comfortable right now because I think Cam Lewis is exactly the kind of player you need on a defense that's struggling at different levels that can help you out in a bunch of different situations.
He brings that mentality that they want in their nickel. That's where it starts too. He's that scrappy, willing to stick his nose in, in the run game, in the pass game. And I thought his change of direction, he's quick. He's quick in short areas. I don't think he's top speed fast, but his change of direction is good. He can stop and go very quickly. He will come down and make a tackle from out wide, outside the box. I think he's smart, being able to play multiple positions. And I thought this game, there were times where he didn't do his assignment and leverage the ball from outside in. And you could see Terrel Bernard say, hey, man, you got to stay outside so that the cutback happens and I can make the tackle, yada, yada, yada. But I do think that the conversation is building steam among the Bills fan base that he should start over Taron Johnson. But I'm with you. I'm not quite there yet. I want to see when Taron's healthy. I think he still is their best nickel. I think a lot of people are zoning in on a couple plays where he let, some intermediate passes get by him, against the Panthers, those deep outbreaking routes, which again, I think what they wanted the defense to kind of, how do they wanted to defend Andy Dalton. I think they're letting that kind of cloud their judgment that most of the stuff that Taron has given up as a defender has actually been behind the line of scrimmage, has been at the line of scrimmage on some of these plays. Like you saw the Dolphins try to execute with Achane, get the ball on the perimeter in this screen game, some of those wide receiver and running back screens on the edge of the defense.
Yeah. And let me also just kind of remind everybody and explain why that's not an easy 1-for-1 switch and shouldn't be, because Cam Lewis does things that Taron Johnson doesn't, meaning he can play safety. He can play around the defense. He can be you can train him throughout the week. So here's how it works at practice, right? You go into a week with a game plan, and let's say they think, okay, Taron's going to be healthy. Let's say this week we think Taron's healthy. He's going to play. That allows them to give Cam Lewis a fuller game plan to say, and nickel, you're here. If we need you in safety, if something happens, one of the safeties, you're doing this. And dime, you're here. That's not Taron. And if you let's just say you start Cam over Taron, now you don't have that guy to be able to fill in these multiple roles. It has a trickle down effect on the roster. And unless he's head and shoulders above Taron, which I don't think he is, and may not be at all, that's not worth doing. It's the same conversation with Ryan Bates on the offensive line.
Oh my gosh, yes. I knew it. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Ryan Bates was so good at everything, meaning so good, right? He could do anything on the offensive line that's his value. So when he would go in and play better than the guard or better than the center, it was like, well, you need to start him there. Well, if you do that, then you don't have the guy to fill in when somebody twists an ankle on the second series of the game, because that's not what he's done all week.
And it affects the roster construction, the game day roster construction, 100%. And I was talking about the value of not just Cam Lewis, but Taron Johnson. And if you look at this chart, the pass points chart in the middle of the screen here, you can see all the red are the completed passes. most of the passes versus Taron Johnson are happening at or near or behind the line of scrimmage. There's only a few that are beyond 10 yards, 3 to be exact, beyond 10 yards that were completed. So again, I think it's just a recency thing. And honestly, it's also credit needs to be given to Cam Lewis because he has played that well to make this a conversation. I'm okay with that. Like, that's what you want as when you're building a roster, you want guys to be able to step in and not be a drop off. And so I do think that is true. I do think there's no drop off right now between Taron and Cam Lewis, but I'm not to the point where I'm taking Taron Johnson out of the lineup yet. I just don't see it happening, especially if we're talking because he's not in the lineup because of injury.
Right. And last week before the game, Taron and Josh Palmer were both on the field with trainers doing a workout. So to me, that means that they're getting closer and, could very well be playing this week and active. And we'll see if that's the case. Looking at the Bucs side, it looks like no Bucky Irving yet still, which, hurts their run game, but Rashad White's done a really nice job. And Sean Tucker, speaking of Syracuse, he's really done a nice job for them. And then, Chris Godwin, most likely. We know Mike Evans is out, right? So they've been injured on the offensive line as well. I love Baker. I think he's a gamer and he's a really accurate passer, but I think this is an offense that you should be able to force into some mistakes or take advantage of some of their personnel issues and injuries that they have going on right now. And it would really help to have a guy like Taron Johnson, obviously healthy, Cam Lewis to be able to do what he does. And, these guys to be able to come back for the Bills as well.
Yeah. And, speaking of the Bucs real quick, they have the injuries. And honestly, if you go back and watch some of their film, Baker is not taking some of the easy stuff too. Right? Go look at our guy, John Ledyard's timeline, who pays attention to the Bucs very closely. And he said there were plays there to be made, and Baker has struggled, and he has struggled since his name has become, associated to the MVP conversation. So to end this segment on the defensive side, give me some more arrows ups, arrows downs on some of the players on that side of the ball.
Well, listen, the only arrow up I gave on the entire defense was Joey Bosa. So there's not much going on there. I did give an arrow up, though. Someone mentioned it earlier. The running backs got involved in the passing game a little bit more in this game. 4 catches, 40-something yards. You want to see that. I hope that continues going forward. I'll also give an arrow up, and I know this is kind of funny to say. People are like, I can't believe we're talking arrow up for the punter. Wisnowski was pretty good in this game. He actually did a good job. He had 4 punts. He pinned 2 of them inside the Bills inside the 20-yard line of the Miami Dolphins. So that was good as well. Lots of arrow downs in this game. And yes, I went through the coaching staff and, the Brandon B not getting a wide receiver and roster construction, Sean McDermott, the team's not ready to play. That's on the coaches and coaching staff. You can say all of that. Joe Brady concepts, like everybody shares blame. That's the whole point, right? Everybody shares blame in this game. What happened? I just think that it was a game where we can look for answers and say, blame this person, blame that person. I just think everybody deserves to take accountability for this game. And I think they have done that, but now where do you go from here? And what do you do, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Cam Lewis is a guy I thought had a great game. We talked about him, 5 tackles, 5 stops in that game. Cole Bishop, 7 tackles, 1 stop. Thought he played really well. Obviously had the interception. His game is just continuously getting better. I think Greg Rousseau had a very sneaky good game, specifically against the run. He dominated the tight ends and tackles of the Dolphins. But yeah,
by the way, he's really, remember early in the season, like, what's wrong, Greg Rousseau? What's wrong, Greg Rousseau? I think we said he was dealing with something. I think he's healthier now. He's playing better now. It's nice to see that.
Yeah, so it's that side of the ball. I think in this game against the Dolphins, they did a great job of settling in and giving the offense opportunities to, right the ship. And the offense just couldn't get on track to make this a game against the Dolphins. Unfortunate for the Bills. It's going to be an uphill battle the rest of the year. And it starts this week against Tampa Bay. And it's going to be interesting to see how they respond against a very talented, well-coached team.
Agreed. And I would have liked it for a couple of reasons. Obviously, you wanted Tampa to beat New England, right? If you're a Bills fan and you're looking at the standings, but would have really helped if Tampa come off a big win at home to come to Buffalo in the little colder weather and come non-conference game. Maybe they're feeling like, it's not as urgent, but that's urgent for them too. I've been reading some stuff from some Bucs reporters, and they're like, they have 2 games coming up. They have road games, I think, against Buffalo and then LA. And it's like they have to pick the pieces up here, and Baker's talking about the urgency and sending a big message to the team afterwards and all those kinds of things. So they're going to come up here ready to play.
No doubt about it. And let's start off this last segment before we
Yep.
get out of here. Talk about some of the roster transactions, things that have occurred news wise. What
Yeah.
what this window for TJ Sanders being open means.
So TJ Sanders will start practicing today, presumably be down there in a little while. But he is going to. Sean McDermott said that. That means 21 days to activate him to the roster. Could be this week, could be next week. We'll see. TJ Sanders gets 21 days before they put him on the active roster. He does not count on the active roster right now. They have one open spot that could be for him. That could be for a guy like Morgan Fox, who they worked out, or somebody else who they work out. They could bring him in. Mecole Hardman's on the practice squad. Do they elevate him at some point? Remember, if you're practice squad, you get elevations. You don't have to be signed to the active roster. That could be Gabe Davis. That could be Mecole Hardman. So a lot of different things happening around the roster, but we do know, unfortunately, Landon Jackson, knee injury, really tough news, obviously, goes on IR, Erik. And then someone asked about Tyler Bass. Good question. Don't know when Tyler Bass is going to kick in. He has been kicking, though. He has been working out. He's been kicking on his own and, kind of going through what he needs to go through to be ready. So I'm not sure exactly where that goes with Tyler Bass for the end of this year. But at some point, that could be an option for the Bills if they believe that they need a little bit more, especially. And I'll say this, Matt Prater's done a really good job. He's also older, and Tyler Bass has a stronger leg. And when the weather starts to turn, you have to kind of think about things like that, I think.
I appreciate it. So practice today.
Yes.
Any pressers coming up? What else you got?
Yeah.
What else you got going on this week?
Sean McDermott a little before noon today, and then practice a little bit after that. So I'll be down there for that. Matt Bove and I will have It's Always Game Day in Buffalo later today as well. So we'll put that out there. We like to call Wednesday's called Media Day, so everybody knows, because it's kind of the big media. We do a lot of things like this, right? It's big media stuff. It's the start of the week. It used to be, because little peek behind the curtain, it used to be, Erik, and they changed the rules in the NFL. Every Wednesday, Media Day, the media from Buffalo, for example, would get to talk to the coach of the other team. They changed that. Or a player from it. They changed that. Doesn't happen anymore. Sometimes I think Mike Tomlin was still doing it a couple of years ago. Some other coaches did it. I don't see it happen anywhere anymore, where the coach of a team talks to the media from the other team. But that's a big reason why they used to call it Media Day, but we don't get that stuff anymore. But it is still the day where we really get off to hit the ground running and see what the first injury report is. That will happen also later today.
Yeah. And you guys, as far as like time length of watching practice, it's a very short span, right?
It is. We get to watch. Yeah, it's that timing. It's mostly stretching and then individual position work. So it could be, I'd say 20, 25 minutes we get, right? So basically you watch them stretch, and then you watch them go to do their DB drills and do their scoops and scores and, fumble drills. You watch the quarterbacks throw a little bit to each other and throw against the net. And then we get to watch some wide receivers run routes. There's also, every team is different, but there's also rules on what we can film and what we can show pictures wise and video wise, where people go, and discuss. Where's the video of that? I say, oh, great catch by this guy. Where's the video? I'm like, well, we couldn't shoot that. We couldn't do that during that.
All right. Yeah, it'll be interesting. You said the wide receiver segment. It'd be interesting to see, again, the pecking order and, who's rising to the top as far as even just running the drills, who's leading those drills. It'd be interesting to hear. Again, your thoughts on what happens at the presser today, but also at practice in the segments that you are able to tune into. Make sure to check out the podcast Later for Sale as well. Him and Matt do a great job of updating us and keeping us on top of the news of the Buffalo Bills. But on behalf of Turf to Tape, I'm Erik Turner. That's Sal Capaccio. We'll see you next week.